Hi friends, in this video we're going to talk about how to use Hyper-V in Windows to create and manage virtual machines. By the end of this video, you can use Hyper-V to create virtual machines in an interface something like this. In fact, we will create some virtual machines in this Hyper-V manager. The whole content for this video is present in this blog post. Please be sure to check out the link of this blog post in the description of this video. So what is Hyper-V? Hyper-V is a type 1 virtualization platform in Windows that can be used to create and manage virtual machines. So Hyper-V is a type 1 hypervisor because it operates in ring 1. That means it doesn't require the operating system, it can directly communicate with the hardware. If you use something like Oracle VirtualBox, it's a type 2 hypervisor because Oracle VirtualBox will not have access to the hardware directly. It requires OS to communicate with the hardware. So Hyper-V is a type 1 hypervisor. So obviously the performance should be good. So why use a hypervisor like Hyper-V to create virtual machines in a system? Well, obviously, if you want to test your stuff in different operating systems, or if you want to create some kind of a sandbox environment where you want to do something and destroy the environment and recreate the environment, something like that, virtual machine is a very obvious and efficient option. You don't need any third-party software. Hyper-V is a Windows feature which can be used to manage virtual machines inside the Windows. So let's try to enable Hyper-V and try to create and manage VMs in Windows. So before installing Hyper-V, you need to ensure that virtualization is enabled. You can check that in the task manager, go to the performance section and click on the CPU and you can see whether virtualization is enabled or not. Let's try to do that. I'm going to open the task manager. Here I'm going to the performance section and click on the CPU, and here you can see virtualization is enabled. So now we can run Hyper-V in this machine. So if you don't have virtualization enabled, you need to enable it in the BIOS settings. So you need to restart the system. In most of the systems it's F12. Click on F12, then you'll get the BIOS settings, and there you need to enable the virtualization. Alright, once you ensure that virtualization is present, you need to just enable the Hyper-V feature. So if you're running a Windows server, you need to add the server role called Hyper-V, and Hyper-V feature would be enabled in that Windows server. If you're running a Windows desktop, only Windows Professional editions will have Hyper-V feature. If you're running a Windows Home edition, Hyper-V feature will not be present, but you can enable that feature. Just create a batch file and copy this text into that batch file. So in a folder, I have created a file called hyper-v install.bat. I can edit in Notepad, and in that file just write this text. This text will be present in the blog post. You can copy paste the text here and your batch file is ready. And once the batch file is ready, just right click on the batch file and run as an administrator. Then it runs some script and enables the Hyper-V feature. If you are running a Windows Professional Edition, it's not required. But if you are running a Windows Desktop with Windows Home Edition, then you need to run this script to actually enable the Hyper-V in that Windows Desktop. So once the Hyper-V feature is enabled, you can check that in the Windows features. So search for Windows features and click on this turn Windows feature on or off. And here search for Hyper-V. In my case, I have already enabled this Hyper-V feature. If it's not enabled, click on this Hyper-V, then Hyper-V feature will be enabled and click on OK. If it was not enabled and you enable it now, it will ask for a restart, then restart the system. Alright, that's it. Just by enabling the Hyper-V feature, you can use Hyper-V to create virtual machines in Windows. Alright, after you enable the Hyper-V, you should see the Hyper-V manager. And using this Hyper-V manager, we can manage our virtual machines. So if I click on Windows and type Hyper-V, you can see Hyper-V manager option. Click on this option and you will see this Hyper-V window. You can even launch Hyper-V from command line by just typing the command what mgmt.msc. So if you don't find this Hyper-V manager option or your search is not working correctly, you can just open the command line and write what mgmt.msc, and then the Hyper-V manager will open up. Alright, we are good to go. Let's try to create some VMs. You know, if you want to test something in a Windows server, you can't do that in a Windows desktop, right? So let's try to create a Windows server. You know, I don't have Windows Server license, so we can download Windows Server evaluation version. So what this version is, basically you will get Windows Server OS for free, but it will expire in 18 days. But for our demo, it's well and good. So I have searched for Windows Server 2022 evaluation version ISO download, and I've got the first link, and you can download the ISO by clicking on this link, and the ISO is being downloaded. So I've downloaded the server evaluation version here. So I got the ISO for my virtual machine. Let's try to create a virtual machine. So in my Hyper-V manager, click on the server which is present here, and you can click new virtual machine. Next, specify the name of the virtual machine. Since I'm creating a Windows server, I'll just write test Windows VM. If you want the virtual machine files to be stored in a different location, you can just click on this button. You can browse the folder and select that folder for storing the VMs. I'm okay with the default location, so I will click next. And then it's asking for the generation of the virtual machine. It's better to select the latest generation. Click next, and it's asking for a startup memory. Startup memory is basically the memory which will be allocated while creating the VM. I'll just create something like 3000 MB. It's approximately 3 GB RAM. And there is another awesome concept called dynamic memory. So dynamic memory allocates only the required memory to the virtual machine. So if the virtual machine is suppose using only 1 GB RAM, only 1 GB RAM will be allocated to the virtual machine. So you can click on the dynamic memory for this virtual machine checkbox also. Click on next, and the network adapter, you can click on the default switch so that you will get network to the VM. Currently let's make it not connected and click next. And it's asking for the hard disk. I just want to keep it something like 80 GB. You can select the size of the hard disk that is going to be mounted on this virtual machine. I've just selected 80 GB and just click next. So here I want to install the Windows Server operating system. So click on the operating system from a bootable image file and click on browse. And in the downloads folder, I've got this Windows Server Evaluation Version ISO. So click on this and click next. And this is the summary. Just cross check it and then we can just click finish. It's that simple. It's just like filling a form and you'll get a virtual machine. All you need is an ISO file for booting the OS. The virtual machine is created. Let's try to right click and connect to the virtual machine. Obviously, we did not start the virtual machine. It's telling to start the virtual machine. Let's try to start the virtual machine. So it's something like a remote desktop. I've just made it full screen and it's asking for the operating system setup options. So I'm going to select the language, the time and currency format, the keyboard input, click next, install now. And I just want a desktop experience. So I'm going to select Windows Server 2022 desktop experience, click next and accept the license, click next. You need to click custom and then click next. And now it's installing the operating system. So I think it's installed the operating system and it's trying to restart the OS. Let me try to create some username password. Finish. And it's asking for the password. Let's try to write the password. And that's it. Just like that, we have got a Windows server to play with. You can see the default server manager and all the stuff. So without any third-party software, just by enabling a Windows feature, we got this awesome Hyper-V manager using which you can create and manage virtual machines in your Windows server or Windows desktop. Now I can do whatever I want, like I can open the browser, I can install some software and test it. I can add roles like DNS server and I can do anything with this VM. You can see the VM is running, the uptime, the assigned memory and all the stuff is shown here. In fact, we did not connect the network. Let's try to connect the network here. Let's try to right click and settings. And here let's go to the network adapter. Let's try to connect the network adapter to the default switch and then click OK. And let's try to go to the remote desktop again. And it's asking for networks. Let's try to click S. Let's try to go to the Edge browser and try to do some Google search. Yeah, we got internet here. You can go to the command line and write something like ipconfig and we got some IP address. You can see that it has created an internal LAN and provided an internal LAN IP address. This is not my computer's IP address series. Hyper-V has created a separate internal LAN and given it IP address. And you can see since it was an evaluation edition, I can use this till 180 days for free. And after 180 days, I need to reset the OS or destroy this virtual machine, which is okay for me. So let's try to disconnect the virtual machine, and that's it. For now, it's using only 1.5 GB of RAM. You can again connect it, right click and connect. Again, you can open the virtual machine and do your work in this. Alright, let's try to stop this virtual machine. You can just turn off. That's all. Alright, we have tested creating a Windows virtual machine. Let's try to create a Linux virtual machine. I've already downloaded a Ubuntu ISO. let's try to create a server from Ubuntu ISO. So again, in the Hyper-V manager, click on new and virtual machine and click next. The same thing, let's write Ubuntu VM or else Ubuntu test VM. Click next. Let's try to go for generation 2. Click next. And let's give a startup memory something like 2 GB 2048, and I will click the dynamic memory. Click next. You can connect or disconnect the network switch. For now I am disconnecting the network switch. Click next, and let me give only something like 80 GB. Click next, and install an operating system from a bootable image file. So I'm going to browse the image file and select my Ubuntu server ISO. So this is the Ubuntu operating system DVD, something like that. Click next, and this is the information which you have entered. Let's click finish, and now it's creating a Ubuntu virtual machine. And one thing before starting the Ubuntu VM is basically go to the right click settings, and here in the security tab, in the enable secure boot, you have to select the template of Microsoft EFI certified authority. If it is Microsoft Windows, it will not boot, so you need to select the second option, or else you can obviously uncheck this secure boot also. Let's go with this option and click OK. And now let's try to start the VM, and let's try to connect to the VM, and it's asking to install the Ubuntu server. Let's try to try or install Ubuntu server. Alright, the installation is completed. Now it's asking for the login, so I'm gonna enter the password. So I've entered the password and I'm running the OS. I can just write something like IPA to see my IP address. So I got a full-blown server. So the VM is running here, and I can even stop the VM, just turn off the VM, and the VM is off. So I got two VMs in my Hyper-V manager, and I can switch off, switch on, or run them in the background if I want. And after the work is over, I can just delete the VM. I can just delete and the VM will be deleted. And I can even delete my virtual hard disk in the C program data Microsoft Windows virtual hard disk folder. Go to this Ubuntu test and delete this VHDX, which is the virtual hard drive also. Now the VM is deleted. So after you use the Hyper-V, if you want to disable it, you can go to the Windows features and then disable Hyper-V, or else you can even stop the service. So I can just click on the stop service, and the Hyper-V Windows service will be stopped, and you can't manage your virtual machines. So if you want to start the service again, you can click on this start service, and the Hyper-V service would be started. And if you're getting some error that virtualization service is not able to start or something like that, you can just go to this services app, and here search for Hyper-V virtual machine management. If it's stopped, right click and start it. Then the virtualization management would be present, and then you connect and select the local machine, and Hyper-V would be started. So this way I can easily manage virtual machines in Hyper-V. Obviously, in today's video, we have just scratched the surface of how to use Hyper-V, but this should be enough for you to spin up VMs and use them for your experimentation purposes, or use them for creating small services or Ubuntu VMs in your Windows machine. The whole content for this video is present in this blog post. Please be sure to check out the link of this blog post in the description of this video. I've also given the link to the official documentation. You can visit this official documentation to do further reading and learn about Hyper-V for managing VMs in Windows machines. Please ask questions or post your valuable feedback in the comment section. Hope you like this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Peace.